I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Executive Committee of the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York. We have one resolution to consider. I'd like to turn the floor over to Trustee Joe Loda to move it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The resolution that effective fall 2011, the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York adopts a revised schedule of student tuition that includes a $300 increase over the current rates for all full-time undergraduate resident students and a proportional increase in graduate, doctoral, non-resident, and per-credit rates at both the senior and community colleges, except for the Masters in Public Administration and Doctor of Nursing Practice programs, for which such increase is assessed on a new tuition rates previously approved for those programs by this Board of Trustees. We've all been handed the explanation.
May I ask you to please think this out before you...
And I'd like to second the motion.
Please think this out
and recognize you had a chance to speak on Monday. I heard you and I read your memorable prose. I'd like to turn it over to Chancellor Goldstein.
Please think it out. This is too damaging to the university and the students. Please take your time and think it out.
Mr. Chancellor, Mr. Chairman, I just want to give the board some background on how tuition has been handled here at the City University of New York, and I would say also at the State University of New York. I think putting this in a context of how tuition has been levied at the university will shed some light on the reasons that the governor and the state legislature adopted a procedure that we are considering tonight that I must say I have lobbied very strenuously for the past 10 years. And the reason is very simple. For years now, the setting of tuition at the City University of New York and at the State University of New York has been very helter-skelter. Invariably, what we have seen is very steep tuition increases. Tuition increases at the level of 15% or 20%, or tuition increases that were at zero. And the reason for that was that when the state of New York found itself in precarious financial situations, we at the university were asked to raise tuition by considerable levels. So much so that we saw on several occasions when the tuition increases were very high that we had students leaving the university because they were confronted with unfathomable increases that they could not manage to do themselves. I have always believed that we need to have a predictable policy for tuition so that the university can plan and to provide opportunities for our students beyond the financial assistance that is given by the state or at the federal government to help those students that are in harm's way. And that is embedded into the discussion tonight as well. I think it is unfair for students who are living at home with their families or on their own not to be able to plan for tuition increases. By not being able to plan, the students cannot provide the resources that they may need for competing kinds of needs. So I have, for a very strenuous, in a very strenuous way, provided information and data and what other states have been doing for a very long time. And finally, the governor came forward with a plan that was adopted by the state legislature. This is the first in a series of actions that the board may take in years ahead. The actual plan was to allow the university to raise tuition up to $300 per year for in-state undergraduate students, and a comparable calculus embedded for students that are out-of-state, graduate students, and in particular other programs. So this recommendation is very consistent with the approach of trying to have a more rational and predictable plan for setting tuition targets. It will allow the university to reactivate other sources of income, which it has not been able to do as effectively, because donors, for example, were saying, why are we asked to provide significant supports for the university if other sources of income are impeded from entering the system as well? I think with the action that we hope that you will take tonight, that prediction on the student side and on the state side, because the state has now stated in the tuition plan that they will have a maintenance of effort for the university. The state has also said that they will not sweep tuition, which has been the case before, when students would provide $1 of support for tuition. Oftentimes, part of that dollar was swept away, so it never found itself into the academic life of the institution. So we now have a system that the state has embraced for students to provide an opportunity to support their educational needs, for the state indicating that they will not sweep that tuition, that it will go for the academic life of the students, that they will not reduce our budget from the previous year because of the maintenance of effort, and in addition would provide for mandatory costs like collective bargaining increases and fuel increases and so forth. So this is a bold step forward for the state of New York, and I think it's important for us to support this tonight, and I think ultimately with efforts that we are embedding into this through our own resources, that those students who are most vulnerable because of these increases, we will do the very best that we can to support those students. Let me just end a little more on that aspect. This plan stipulates that if students are now receiving full TAP, the Tuition Assistance Program, they will not have to pay the increase. If students are now getting an 80% of TAP or 60% of TAP, that increase will be reduced accordingly. So part of the revenue that we would be receiving from this increase is going to support the students that are at risk. Secondly, because it reactivates the compact, much of the resources that we will be receiving through philanthropy will also be reprogrammed to assist students in need. So we're going to do everything that we possibly can to ensure that there will be soft landings for those students that will have problems. And that basically is the plan that you're being considered to support this evening.
Are there other comments? Mr. Provost?
So I think that the state took definitely a step that they haven't done so in as long as my memory engage it ever in trying to establish some kind of policy for the university. And as I said at our last board meeting, I think it was a good thing that they're willing to invest through the maintenance of effort in maintaining that amount. But also, as I said at the last meeting, is I don't think that raising tuition right now is the most appropriate or even the best thing we can do for the students. This board authorized tuition to increase through the CUNY compact already, and now we're talking to increase that amount just a little bit more to gain a couple extra dollars, I believe. And I just after the testimonies I've heard last night, and I asked one of the vice presidents of BMCC, is this amount that we're raising tuition even sufficient, or does he think it's adequate that will solve what problems we're facing? And his only response to me was, it better be. That gives me no certainty that our tuition increase will even go to address the problem that we're really facing. And I see this just really as placing a Band-Aid on what the real situation is. And I think that I never want to see a tuition increase. Make that very clear. But if we're going to go with what we did already with the CUNY compact and accepting that while we try and go back to the drawing board to fix this or try and come up with a real solution to fix the situation, I think that would probably be the best thing we can do rather than trying to increase it just for this little bit of extra, which will hurt students. The loan scholarship is pretty much non-existent anymore, and it's just, I think we need to just take a moment, let this not happen, and go with what we've already said.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a question. The implications of not proceeding with this increase, essentially what alternatives would we have, and also what would occur if we didn't proceed with this?
Vice Chair,
what would be the implications?
Yeah, Vice Chair Berry, I want to remind the board that in the last 2.5 years, we faced $300 million extracted out of the budgets of the senior colleges and a huge amount out of the community colleges as well. It is unsustainable. I want to make that very, very clear. It is unsustainable. On top of all of the other cuts that we have had, we could go through an accounting of the actions that would affect students. I mean, that's what I'm mainly concerned about. We will not have the ability to provide the classes that the students need. We will not have the ability to provide the academic support services that the students need. We will not have the ability to equip the laboratories that the students need and the lab techs and all of the very core activities. I would say that if we did not have the predictability of income coming in, it's going to create longer for students to graduate, and the effect is going to be much greater financial burden on the students. The longer it takes to graduate, because of the inability to give students the choices that they need and the options that they need for classes, has the inevitable consequence of taking another semester or another year or 2 years to graduate. That's the inevitable consequence. And that has a much deeper financial burden on the student than it is to pay the tuition increase that is being proposed tonight. That's the reality. I mean, that's the economic consequence that you're facing. And so I don't think that we have an alternative given what we've been faced.
Thank you. Are there any, Mr. Provost?
Yeah, I understand that, but the state authorized us to approve an amount up to $300. That doesn't mean that we have to approve that amount of $300. And I feel that the board, when they were going through the CUNY compact, the amount wasn't up to $300. That's why I'm saying that if at that time we felt that that amount is sufficient, then we couldn't be at that point again today.
We need the $300 or else we wouldn't be proposing it.
But is the $300 sufficient? Oh, do we really need more?
Give me 300 too.
The $300 is not going to solve our problem completely. It's not going to solve all of the dollars that have been already extracted out of the university, for sure. And on a going forward basis, the needs of the university, as more and more students are selecting CUNY to provide the opportunities for their baccalaureate degrees, their associate degrees, we're going to need to hire people.
What's your salary?
We're going to need to hire full-time faculty, and we're going to need to hire support services. So the university is growing, and its expenditures are going to grow, and you have to have an income stream to support that.
Other comments? Are you ready for the question? All right. All those in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye.
Sandy, where do
Any
you stand on
opposed?
this?
Any opposed?
Doesn't matter, I don't vote.
You don't want to talk
Any
on
abstentions?
behalf of your students?
All right, the resolution carries. That's the
I said
only
I don't vote.
business before the executive committee, so I declare the meeting adjourned.